будемо дотувати російський «Газпром». Українці не будуть витягувати з кишень 5 мільярдів доларів США на рік на те, щоб Росія купувала за ці гроші зброю, танки, літаки і бомбила українські території.
It's an act of war. Yesterday, Russia's state-controlled firm called Gazprom cut off natural gas supplies to Ukraine after a blackmail deadline came and went. This comes amid continued violence in eastern Ukraine as Russian-backed infiltrators wage a slow-motion war against Ukraine. Our next guest knows a lot about strategic showdowns in Russia. Garry Kasparov is a master chess player, but also an outspoken political activist. As he watches Putin devour Ukraine, he's been highly critical of Putin and Obama, too. Kasparov is also chairman of the Human Rights Foundation, and he joins us now with more from Washington, D.C. Mr. Kasparov, welcome to the program. Let me ask you first, before we talk politics, how did you move from chess to human chess in the form of politics?
I wouldn't call politics in Russia. When I moved from professional chess in this territory, I think people were mistaken calling it politics. It was more of human rights fight, a stand for democratic values, because politics means that you go through a due process, and when you say elections, people think immediately about registering political parties, raising money for the campaigns, having access to media, participating in a debate, televised debates. It was not available in Russia. In Putin's Russia, unlike in chess, where rules are fixed and results are unpredictable, it's exactly the opposite. In Putin's elections, quote unquote, results are always predictable and rules change the moment he wants it.
Huh. So would you say that calling Putin a chess player isn't even right, because if he's losing, he just smashes the chessboard or just changes the rules? Is he a chess player? Does he think like a chess player, or does he think like a KGB agent?
Yeah, it's hard to answer the question, because everybody who is doing any form of geopolitical strategy must think as a chess player. But if we're talking about respecting the rules, of course, he's a KGB guy, and the rules can be followed only if he sees immediate benefits. He doesn't care about contracts. He doesn't care about fair negotiations. At the end of the day, his only goal is to stay in power. And if you want to compare him to any professional player, I would rather pick poker, because he's very good in raising stakes. And for many years, he always won because the opposite side, I mean the Western opposite side, the leaders of the free world, they always blinked when you saw him pushing the stakes high.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one more question about chess before we move on to my favorite subject these days, which is Vladimir Putin and his slow-motion war. You're running for the leader of the World Chess Federation. Tell me a little bit about your campaign and what it's revealed to you about how politics seeps even into chess.
I'm not sure that while we're talking about my campaign for International Chess Federation, known by its French acronym FIDE, we'll be moving away from Russian politics, because my opponent is an incumbent who is there for 19 years. He is a Putin's crony. He is fully supported by Putin and Russian government. Every Russian embassy in the world has been actively lobbying for him, for current president of FIDE, Mr. Kirsan Ilyumzhinov. He has quite a reputation coming up from one of the poorest regions of Russia, Kalmykia, where he was a president for many years. He's also known for talking constantly about aliens being abducted by the aliens. And he also had quite a record of serving as Putin envoy, visiting Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and recently Bashar al-Assad. So while I have a clear vision of what I want to do in the world of chess, how to reform it, how to bring chess into education, how to use social networks and modern technologies, I'm facing the machine that cares only about staying in power as their boss in Kremlin, and using all sorts of dirty tricks one can imagine to make sure that I cannot succeed. To also make a connection with our next subject, I can tell you that Ukrainian Chess Federation now, for instance, has sent a complaint to FIDE demanding not to recognize Russian jurisdiction over Crimea. So all the tournaments played in Crimea cannot be counted as played on Russian territory. And the result of these elections will determine whether this complaint will be successful or not, because I'm fully supportive of this claim, while, of course, the incumbent will do everything to destroy it.
It's incredible that even in chess, which should be completely apolitical and nonpartisan, you see such.
Yeah, but come on, Ezra. But chess is also a sport. I mean, every major international sport organization is engaged in politics.
Well, so we saw the Sochi Olympics.
Has been for a long time, yeah. and the KGB control. It's like, a very quiet KGB network around the world, and they don't want to lose it.
Isn't that incredible? Hey, can I ask you about your own status and your own activities in Russia? I mean, you were a political activist. What's your status there? Are you afraid to go there? Do you face arrest? Will you be given the Khodorkovsky treatment, thrown in jail on trumped-up charges?
Look, I left Russia in February 2013, and I have all reasons to believe that my trip to Russia will be, it's a one-way trip. What will happen, how's the rest, or worse, I don't know. But it's very clear that in today's Putin's Russia, anybody who dares to criticize Vladimir Putin and his policies will not be protected by any law.
Do you feel like you're under scrutiny or surveillance? Have you had any interaction with agitators or KGB or FSB agents around the world as you go about your world tour in the name of chess, in the name of democracy and human rights? Are you harassed by Putin or his cronies?
Well, look, I live in the plane most of the time now. When I'm on the ground, I live in New York, okay, America is not that badly infiltrated by Putin's agents, so that's why I still have a quiet time with my family when I'm on the ground.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad to hear it. Well, listen, Garry Kasparov, it's a pleasure to talk with you about chess, but when we come back, I want to get right into Vladimir Putin's massive chess game that he's beating Barack Obama and the European Union at every day. That's his slow-motion invasion of Europe. More with Garry Kasparov right after the break. Welcome back. We're talking with Garry Kasparov, Grandmaster chess player and critic of Vladimir Putin. Mr. Kasparov, Putin has been symbolically marginalized by some Western countries since his invasion of Ukraine, but has he faced any substantive consequences to his recent actions in Ukraine?
It's hard to say, because these sanctions, though I think they were insufficient under current circumstances, are still biting. And naturally, the Russian economy is suffering indirectly because capital is fleeing. And we could see it's already not yet dramatic, but serious effect on the Russian economy. And I think Putin recognizes that if he loses this sense, even the illusion of financial stability in the country, and if people are just getting frustrated with the lowering living standards, all euphoria, all this patriotic euphoria, will disappear overnight. So that's why Putin is concerned. But on the other side, there is no yet substantial challenge to his rule, because both he and Russian ruling elite believe that these sanctions are temporary, and at certain point in 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, the Western governments will go back to business as usual. Well, and I think this is the biggest failure, a failure of the Western governments to actually demonstrate that they are dead serious about annexation of Crimea, because Putin yet to believe them that they will never accept it.
Well, I think that I'm surprised with how vigorous you think these sanctions are. I mean, we have France proceeding to sell a military aircraft carrier to Russia. We have Gazprom, even though they're cutting off Ukraine, it still sells a third of the energy to Europe, including to Germany. And Gerhard Schroeder, the former German chancellor, is pals with Putin. Putin went to his birthday party in April. I don't think these sanctions are serious at all, and I don't think they ever could be, as long as UK bankers... Go ahead.
I agree. But yes, these sanctions are not as good as far as I wanted and you wanted them to be. But it's still better than nothing, because I bet you Putin thought that nothing would happen at all. So after this quick and painless annexation of Crimea, Putin, I think, was quite surprised to see that first time, the West, both Washington and European capitals, they showed some form of resentment. It's not enough.
Let me talk about the domestic situation. I mean, of course, Vladimir Putin, it's a Potemkin democracy. There are some trappings of democracy, but as you say, that whole process of independent courts, of a multi-party democracy, of an independent media, is systemically being shut down. But still, Putin, like any tyrant, requires the public to believe that he is strong and unmovable. How has the Ukrainian campaign and the response from the West affected Putin's domestic position? Are there even political opinion polls in that country to trust? Are there any sources of reaction and opposition to him?
Now, first of all, let us be very clear. You cannot trust opinion polls run in the country which is ruled for a long time by a dictator, or it's a one-party dictatorship, because people are scared. And don't forget, there's still a genetic fear inherited from the Soviet time. And just imagine, that if you are just ordinary citizen and getting a telephone call, anonymous telephone call, asking, what do you think about Vladimir Putin? I'm still surprised 20% saying they don't like what he's doing. Because, you don't know who is calling you and why you should give your objective opinion. On the other hand, we should say that, yes, the annexation of Crimea inspired the patriotism, and because for many Russians, Crimea has has a historic importance. It's somewhat of nostalgia, not so much for Soviet Union, but the great Russia, and it comes to the Russian literature and the many traditions. I think it's some form of subconscious reaction, but it will not last. But we should not forget that Putin, as every dictator who is staying in power for so long, he needs a new rationale, a new mythology, why he's staying there. Economy doesn't offer him any more excuses, because economy is not getting better, it's stagnating, and actually it's now showing sign of a decline. So he needs a new image. And what else left after 15 years but to become, a collector of Russian lands? So that's why somehow Putin is forced to start this aggressive foreign policy as the only way to convince Russian public that he's still needed. He's the only one who can protect Mother Russia and her historic interest against enemies who are surrounding our country.
3 times now Putin has cut off the natural gas to Ukraine. 2006, 2009, and now he's invaded. These were not tactics used during the Cold War. When Europe bought energy from the Soviets during the Cold War, they didn't dare be so provocative. And I think that if there was a Margaret Thatcher or a Ronald Reagan in the White House and in 10 Downing Street today, Putin can get away with it. I think it's his good luck that he's the president. At the same time, Barack Obama is the American president. Tell me what Obama could have done and could be doing today to stand up to Putin that he's not doing.
Okay, I'm not a Barack Obama fan, but just I could say one word in his defense, that he has been twice elected by American public, and I think somehow he reflects the American public resistance to any strong foreign policy. Don't forget that Ronald Reagan, probably one of the greatest presidents of the 20th century, and definitely the man who made the greatest contribution to destroy the Soviet empire. I mean, he has been elected the president at a time when Americans were ready to take the strong stand. Which, of course, in any case, should not belittle his personal strengths and ability to resist the pressure from the Soviets, or even to impose his own strategy on Politburo. But the difference between Putin's dictatorship and Soviet dictatorship, or if we look at today's map, Chinese dictatorship, Putin's rule is one-man show, which means that he is the only he carries sole responsibility for every action. He doesn't have the system that can protect him, as it was in the Soviet Union or in China today, when you had a party bureaucracy, and the change of the leader may not necessarily mean the dramatic shift in the domestic or foreign politics. Putin is playing a very risky game. He must gamble because he has no other choice, and he knows that both in Europe and the United States there is no appetite for confrontation. So that's why, even having a very weak hand, he can push the stakes high, and he expects, rightly so, that opponents blink.
We're talking with Garry Kasparov. Stick around after the break. I'm going to ask Mr. Kasparov about fracking and if that could liberate Eastern Europe from the Kremlin's Gazprom. Stay around for that. We're talking with Garry Kasparov, chess grandmaster, running for the leadership of the World Chess Federation and an effective and brilliant critic of Vladimir Putin. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Mr. Kasparov. Let me ask you this. I think that Gazprom is actually Putin's greatest weapon against the West because it fuses Europe to Russia, and you can no more put sanctions on Russia while it's selling you gas that I could put sanctions on my own gas company because they would just cut me off. And I think all the banking oligarchs in the UK just add to that. Let me ask you this. Fracking has created an energy revolution in the United States, turning useless shale rock into hundreds of billions of dollars worth of natural gas. And there is shale rock in Ukraine, in Poland, in Germany, in much of Europe, but it hasn't been developed. Do you think that European governments will shuck off the moratoriums in some countries and the political fear-mongering in others and develop their own energy to be free of Russia?
Yeah, before they do that, they have to show political will, because it's a political decision. And again, unfortunately, for many years now, Europe has been resting on its laurels. The Europeans, they would like to have a comfortable life without any serious confrontation. And Gazprom was such a convenient supplier. I mean, why to bother? And okay, you can always negotiate, so find a compromise. So the whole philosophy of European Union these days is just to avoid confrontations and to avoid big decisions. And starting fracking in Europe, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's Poland, it's Estonia, it's Germany, and there's plenty. So there's no problem of just, filling every European house with enough gas for next century. And by the way, you can also ask Norway to increase gas supply. You can always ask Algeria. I mean, you have many options, around the world, around Europe actually, to make sure that, within a year or so, you will make Gazprom less relevant or even irrelevant. But it requires, some form of sacrifice. You have to start investing money. You have to start fighting the Greens. You have to make, political alliances. You have to accept that maybe some of your gas companies will not see such big benefits. It's a political will. It starts with a strong leadership that is Europe is not ready to show. When people are threatening, that Putin's actions, Gazprom cutting supplies to Europe will cause chaos, I'm saying, look, if you cut a finger and you do harakiri, there is blood in both cases. Yeah. But the outcome is different. Europe is afraid to cut a finger while recognizing that if Putin really cuts gas supply, and it means we lose all the money that he receives from Europe, that will be a harakiri for Putin's regime.
Yeah. Let me ask you this about Gazprom, because we know after the fall of the Berlin Wall, we discovered what many in the West suspected was that the KGB and other Russian agencies were funding Western groups, disarmament groups, political agitators in the West. Do you believe that Gazprom or the Kremlin is supporting either financially or through propaganda or other assistance anti-fracking or anti-capitalist groups in the West that seem to always attack natural gas, oil sands, fracking in America, but I've never seen an attack on OPEC countries or on Gazprom that would be proportionate to their share of the market. Do you think Putin is pulling some strings in the environmental movement?
Probably, but I wouldn't separate environmental movement from other lobbying interests of Vladimir Putin and his clique. They are notorious for buying favors. And whatever you could see in the Soviet days, it's probably tenfold today. Nobody could imagine 30, 40 years ago that the former Chancellor of Germany will be working for Vladimir Putin. And the same goes for the former Prime Minister of Finland. The same goes for former Prime Minister of Italy. And when you look at London today, I mean, South Kensington is probably Russian-speaking territory, and with so much money, Russian money, filling every restaurant, every private school in the UK, you can hardly imagine UK government having any appetite for substantial sanctions. So Putin used money. As I always said, he used banks, not tanks.
Yeah.
Eventually using tanks as well. But he was very effective in creating an infrastructure that could always protect his interests. And don't forget, Russia today it's probably the best funded television in the world that goes in almost every hotel room. And it's a pure propaganda machine that has nothing to do with news.
You're talking about RT, Russia Today, is that what you mean?
RT, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
and it's already a multi-language program, yes.
Yeah. For a while, that was actually given away free in Canada by cable companies. They wouldn't even give our TV show out if we paid them.
Yeah, but they don't need even subscribers because they're well funded by Putin's government. Which probably means Gazprom money anyway.
Can I ask you a question about the new Russia-China energy deal? Just as Europe is questioning its reliance on Gazprom, Putin signs a $400 billion gas deal with China. Now they're talking about doing the deal in a currency other than U.S. dollars. What does this mean in terms of the China-Russia relationship?
Oh, it's a huge geopolitical victory for China and eventual disaster for Russia, which will eventually cease to be an independent state and will be turned into the Chinese energy supplier. The deal is very, very unfair if you look at it commercially, because Russia has to start spending money building all the pipelines, and China will be buying gas just from the border. The fact is that Russian government has been hiding the real price for gas, demonstrates that it was a Putin's political demonstration, and it will cost Russia tens of billions of dollars now, hundreds of billions of dollars in the near future, and eventually will mean that China will become a dominant player in the Russian Far East, in the Siberia, the territories that China is still claiming as her own.
That's incredible. Garry Kasparov, what a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you for joining us with your straight talk.
Thanks for inviting me.
What a pleasure. Thank you.